Are there any other amendments? Senator Franzen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the A9 amendment.
Senator Franzen offers the A9 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Franzen moves to amend House File Number 2414 as amended pursuant to Rule 45, page 364, after line 2 insert. This is the A9 amendment.
To the amendment, Senator Franzen.
Thank you, Mr. President. And this amendment talks about having a cannabis task force in terms of understanding what it would imply for the state to legalize recreational cannabis. So it's a benign amendment. It doesn't make any decisions of where Minnesota will go one way or the other. It simply asks the question of what are the things that we need to be talking about, know about. It has all the stakeholders. It's actually Senator Abler's bill, which is bipartisan. I'm a co-author to the bill. And I also support the fact that it doesn't make this a political issue. It pushes it out to after the election. Personally, I wish we could figure this out sooner. I think we can find information in less time than 2 years, but it is Senator Abler's bill, and in that spirit of being a bipartisan bill, I move it as an amendment to this omnibus, and I hope it's something we can accept because it's really not making any decision for Minnesota. It's simply asking for information. And this deliberative body, we need information to make decisions and policy decisions. So, members, I hope you can consider this task force and include it in this bill. And I ask for your support.
Mr. President.
Discussion on the amendment. Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Point of order. I would like to have a ruling on this amendment. It's out of order under Rule 7.4, paragraph 1, increase net appropriation from a fund without a corresponding increase in net revenue.
Senator Rosen raises a point of order under Rule 7.4. Advice.
Advice, Mr. President.
Senator Franzen.
It actually doesn't increase funding for the bill, so I argue that the bill it does not come out of balance.
I'm sure she'll gut it in committee. Although I think she does genuinely agree that we need to have consumer protection. And Code Weiber would do it rural, but he prefers us to do it.
Oh yeah.
And so
Mr. President.
that's why I said I just think cannabinoids not.
Senator Rosen, can I rule on your point of order?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to
Senator Rosen.
I'd like to withdraw my my motion or my
Objection.
ruling or whatever.
Your point of order.
Point of order. Thank you.
Senator Rosen withdraws her point of order. Senator Benson.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Senator Franzen, you did mention this to me, but as I stated earlier, we have taken language to let the Board of Pharmacy manage CBD oil. We have significant changes to the medical marijuana program. I think we need to move thoughtfully, but let's remain within some boundaries. We are just adding industrial hemp. It's in the ag bill. We are letting that get rolling. We are making modifications to our medical cannabis program to make it more affordable and more accessible. And if there is going to be significant concern that this is a path to legalization, Minnesotans are going to be very concerned that we are rushing to legalization, and so I'm going to ask for a no vote on this task force. I also think there is probably a better use for the money in this bill than a task force.
Further discussion. Senator Franzen.
Mr. President, I ask for a roll call on. on this amendment, and frankly, a vote against this is a vote for less information and more ignorance about the issue. I know several members have expressed that they have experience with either CBD oil or other aspects of this issue, and not all of us do, and we need to make informed decisions of whether we're going to move forward or not. And not moving because we want to be blindfolded by not having information, I think it's a disservice to Minnesotans. Right now, just yesterday, there was an announcement in the news of a private fund investor actually giving about $9 million to MIT and Harvard to literally research this issue, and we're just going to act like it's not happening around us. And we're going to be whether we're the last state in the country that moves in this direction, that's not up to me. But members, let's not be against education. We are here to learn and to make decisions on behalf of our constituents. This, this particular task force is very balanced, and frankly, I'd rather it come from us than having other branches of government do their own task force. I think it's imperative for us to really express who we want on those task forces and that happen with our consent. So again, I urge your support on a green vote on this amendment. It's good to know. It's not good to be ignorant.
Further discussion on the amendment? Senator Littmer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Some of the members may not know, but the Judiciary Committee studied or considered the task force that Senator Franzen is proposing. We rejected the task force in our committee. We also rejected the whole concept of legalized marijuana. And the reason is that we had quite a lengthy discussion about it, 3.5 hours of testimony. What's beginning to emerge in the data is that coming from 2 states that have already legalized marijuana for recreational purposes is that there's quite a consequence that's now developing in the states, Colorado and Washington State. As a result of legalization of marijuana, it's becoming very clear that that state culture is beginning to change. Traffic accidents are up. Lethargy toward job employment is rising. Marriage dissolution is rising. The increase in young people experimenting with other drugs, using marijuana as a potential gateway to more serious illicit drugs are on the rise. And it seems very obvious that we really don't need a task force to see what would be coming at us in the event that we did legalize marijuana for recreational purposes. In the near future, there's other states that have decided to go forward on this bold experiment, and we'll have even more data to determine just how that affects a state, its culture, its young people, its rising crime rates. And quite honestly, I think the evidence is very clear that this is not a healthy development for any state to go toward, and that the early concern of marijuana being legalized for recreational purposes is real. I would ask that you reject this amendment.
Further discussion to the A9 amendment, Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, Senator Limmer just shared some interesting information with us. I've heard similar reports. I've also heard conflicting analyses of some of the data, and that's the point. There's a lot of information coming in, and what better way than a task force to really dive into all the information from the different states that are going through this experience? There's no foregone conclusion here, but we need to have a reasonable place in which to have this conversation and start investigating the information on behalf of the people of Minnesota so we can answer the questions responsibly. Thank you.
Senator Franzen.
Thank you, Mr. President. And if Senator Limmer's analysis is correct, then we would just validate his findings, right, with a task force. So I would think that would be something he would appreciate. And for the record, this is not the same task force that we voted against in committee. It's completely different. It's a completely different bill, and it's completely different components of who's in it and the timeline. It's a different bill. The one I offered is not the same as what I'm offering here. So we haven't taken a position on this particular language. So I continue to ask for members to support this language and learn more about this issue, because a lot of us obviously don't.
Seeing no further discussion on the A9 amendment, the Secretary will take the roll on the amendment. All senators having voted who desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 31 ayes and 33 nays, the amendment is not adopted.